Lletya. Once the base of the elven resistance against the Ironworth clan, this village is one of the few settlements in Turanwen, with the only other signs of civilization being various camps and the city of Prifddinas. While Lletya played a key role in the Elf series, with Prifddinas' release, there's little reason for anyone to go visit this hidden town. So let's see if we can bring a little more attention to the former base of the Elven Rebels. What's up, everyone? This is Destroyer229, and welcome to the Hotspot. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at the elven village of Lletya, and see if we can't try to update its facilities. Lletya was a nice reprieve from the dangers of Isfadar, allowing players to stock up on supplies or use a bank when there otherwise wouldn't be a convenient place to do so. Reaching these forests used to be a challenge, with either venturing through the underground pass or Arendar, with danger every step of the way. Back in the day, teleport seeds to Lletya were the only way to safely enter these lands, as even the charter ships had you traversing through several traps to reach any resources. Nowadays though, there's a convenient lodestone to get to the forest, and the traps are nowhere near as threatening. And most people just teleport straight to Prifddinas anyway. While we aren't looking to revamp Turanwen, we can at least provide some extra attention to Lletya, as it doesn't have much of a purpose once Prifddinas is reopened. We'll go over this in 3 parts. First, we'll go over the town itself and what it has to offer today. Second, we'll look into putting in a new trading method and open a new branch of discovery. And third, we'll justify this new trading spot with a short mini quest that will unlock it. So grab some anti-poisons and let's begin. Lletya is a small elven settlement located in the southeastern part of Turanwen. It is home of the Elven Resistance Group, founded by Arianwen and the late Lady Ithel to shelter those fleeing from the Ironworth clan when Prifddinas was reverted to a seed. Lletya is accessible to players once they have started Morning's End Part 1, and has a few facilities for players to use. It has a flax field and spinning wheel, and is home to the only bank in Turanwen prior to finishing Plague's End, though a bank deposit box was added to the elf camp after Deadliest Catch. There's also a seamstress shop that can sell every type of normal dye, as well as a fruit tree farming patch for your farm runs. There's even an altar on the upper levels to help restore prayer points if you're running low. While there are a few other things like a food shop or a sheep pen, these are the only things of worth in Lletya, and even then, they're not really all that helpful. There are some magic trees nearby, and some light animica rocks, and while it would be good to go to Lletya to drop off these high-level supplies, with porters, this removes the need, leaving Lletya feeling abandoned. Which is a shame, because Lletya, despite its current look being in place since 2013, it still looks really pretty, and wouldn't need any sort of graphical update. Well, except to the elves themselves. I mean, seriously, who thought this look was a good idea? So, rather than placing valuable resources near Lletya, why don't we put them instead in Lletya? So what resource could we put inside Lletya that would bring people into the town? Well, easy. We add in an archaeology dig site. Now, narratively, this may seem out of place. Lletya was founded in the tail end of the 4th Age, and so when Morning's End Part 1 rolls around, the village had been around for less than 200 years. Which, while that may seem like a long time, it's still within the lifespan of any elf, and certainly isn't long enough to have buried ruins. So in order for this to make sense, this dig site will be focused on expanding some of the elf history, where Lletya, coincidentally, was established on top of an old elf site. For this to work, these dig sites would be from the Third Age, as a secret outpost over an invading threat from the south during the God Wars. This site will give some insight into a lost piece of elf history that was so secret, it never made it to the Grand Library in Prifddinas. In terms of levels, a lot of Archaeology's progression is already covered with previous dig sites, but there are some gaps that we can still fill in. More specifically, there's a distinct lack of progression around the 50s, and progression into the early 80s is also sparse. So we'll aim for these dig sites to fill these mid-range level gaps. The first dig site will be available at level 52 and will go up to level 59, while the second dig site will be starting at level 80 and go up to level 88. Since this would be creating a brand new chapter in the elves' history, we won't be going over any specific lore revelations in either the artifacts or the mysteries here. But if I had to give one example of why this site needed to be built, we could say that the elves made this outpost as a defense against Zulrah. For those of you who don't play old school, Zulrah is a very popular boss that players can fight in the Poison Wastes, and the entrance can be found south of Port Tyrus. In old school's lore, Zulrah was an experiment of the Dragonkin that was set loose right at the beginning of the Fourth Age, and grew in power after it was discarded. While there would need to be some differences, like Zulrah's time frame, it wouldn't be the first time RuneScape 3 made changes to the lore of an old school boss. Hell, it almost seems standard when you look at both Zuck and Vorkath. So this site could be the staging grounds against Zulrah during the last days of the God Wars, and could even serve as a teaser to a potential Zulrah boss fight in RuneScape 3. Relics can work for pretty much anything, but a few ideas I want to toss around would focus on various things in Prifddinas and the surrounding area. Some example of relic powers could be that harmonium harps never go out of tune, the boosts from the voice of Seren are enhanced, like the 20% XP boost becomes 30%, you double the amount of death runes crafted at the death altar at no extra experience, or any crystal weapon, tool, or armor degrades 50% slower. While the relics don't have to be related to anything in Tronwyn, I figured it would work well to keep the rewards centered around the nearby area. Of course, a lot of these relic ideas would require access to Prifddinas, which would mean that the associated mystery would need to go there. This would also ideally be tied to the higher tiered dig site whenever this happens. Even still, I'd love to hear your ideas on different relics that could be unlocked through a Lletya dig site. But there's still the elephant in the room, and that's how such a dig site could exist in the first place. So let's go over one idea on how this can happen. To gain access to this dig site, the player will need to complete either a short quest or a mini quest to unlock the area. To begin, the player will need to have finished Morning's End Part 1 and have level 52 Archaeology. With those requirements fulfilled, the player will automatically get a letter at the Archaeologist Guild from Iestin Edern, aka Lord Ironworth. He will write that he's found an archaeological discovery that is of great importance to the elves, but that he's encountered some sort of problem and needs your help on behalf of the Archaeology Guild. While it would make more sense for this to require Plague's End when Iestin actually becomes Lord Ironworth, logging a level 50 archaeology site behind a Grand Master quest with nearly a dozen level 75s doesn't really make a lot of sense. So for our proposal, Plague's End will be a recommended requirement instead of a hard one. This could always be changed if we only have the level 80 dig site area, or if the level 80 dig site is the lower leveled area, and there's a dig site in the level 100s that we access later. But for our purposes today, we're trying to fill the gaps around the 50s and 80s, hence why they were chosen in the first place. This can always change, of course, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the requirements one way or the other. Lord Ironworth can be found just inside the gate to Lletya. He'll explain that old relics were found just to the east of Lletya. No records exist of anything here prior to Letya's founding, and so he wants to excavate the area to uncover as much as he can. However, his plans also involve tearing down Lletya to fully investigate the area, and he's been having a lot of pushback, particularly from Archaeology. He wants you to talk to Archaeology and convince him to relocate Letya's population to Prifddinas, and allow him to save this forgotten history. Talk to Archaeology, and he'll mention that Iestin is too brash in his quest for knowledge. He'll say that a vote was held by the clan heads when the first artifact was uncovered, and there was an even split. Kadarn, Ithil, Amlond, and Hefin want to preserve Lletya, while Ironworth, Traharan, Mailer, and Kriz agree to staging the dig site. He's insistent on preserving the late Ithil's legacy and the reminder of what they had to endure during the Ironworth invasion. Ultimately, your goal is to broker a compromise between the two, but we'll skip over how you accomplish that, as we're not going to go into great detail on this quest today. This quest is meant to highlight how the clans are working since Within the Light, and also show that tension still exists between the Ironworth and the rest of the clans, even the ones that may agree with Iestin for this dig site. Ultimately, you will successfully reach a compromise that a dig site can be made to the east of the town, but Lletya stays intact, and the elves don't need to leave their homes. This will reward the player with access to the new dig site, and the associated relics and mysteries that come with it. Now, while we could just let this be as a standalone expansion to Archaeology, I'm a sucker for trying to tie content together for a larger narrative purpose. So, how we can connect this to a story beat would be that during your time gathering information, Iestin will say that the corruption from the poison wastes has been accelerating rapidly in recent months. This corrosion is what helped uncover the first of these relics from the past, and he's insistent on working quickly to ensure that this piece of history isn't lost, as more artifacts are destroyed every day with the ever-expanding poison wastes. What this does is tie this dig site to Arposandra, and can tie into that area or lore expansion. While this wouldn't be a direct continuation of the Gnome series, it would be a piece of skilling content that is related to the story season, like how the accidental fire making and fledging were tied to the Elder God Wars, or the various skilling expansions were tied to Fort 4 and 3. Lletya is already involved in the Prisoner of Glufri, so it's not like this is even the first time that Lletya is connected to Arposandra. So this ultimately provides a nice skilling update, and a quest that would at least loosely tie into a Gnome story expansion, once we eventually get to that. So that is my idea on expanding Lletya. What do you think? Do you have any ideas on any relics we could add? Do you want to change up the level ranges for these dig sites? Is there a time period for this site that you would prefer to see rather than the Third Age? Let me know in the comments below. and I'll see you all in the next video. So, until next time everyone, take care.